Hello, hello, hello. All right. Peace, family. Islam. It's your brother Cool. So we're back here with another PowerPoint lecture. This one I'm focusing more on the personal business aspects, how to function personally, um, you know what I'm saying, outside the United States, aka privately, as a national. All right. And this is universal, not just for Moors. All right. This is universal um, template. All right. Once again, the PayPal link is in the description box. If anyone wants this presentation, just email me. The email is also in the description box for Sunel University. Email me there, um, either with confirmation of a donation. You know what I'm saying, for the PowerPoint, which is 10 notes. 10 notes. Okay, for the PowerPoint. Also, I also want to let the family know that I do have workshop videos, all right, available. Now, I post these videos privately due to the fact that they are very in depth, all right, in terms of the workshops. I specifically go into the how to's, you know what I'm saying, through various scenarios, like, for instance, how to register your vehicle properly through your trust, okay, through the DOL as a indigenous Native American, either through using the state's plates, which will still have the automobile, you know what I'm saying, recognized as being part of a Native American organization, an indigenous organization, or there's a way where you can create your own tribal plates and register, not register, but have that updated into their system. You know what I'm saying? That way, no matter what happens, whether you're traveling with state plates or you're traveling with your own tribal plates, that they will be both in the system of the state. So that way, either way, they'll be recognized. So you won't run into traveling issues, period. You know what I'm saying? Like no traveling issues. Okay? Like they're already recognized, boop, oh, Native American, not my jurisdiction. You know what I'm saying? That type of movement. So those are the type of workshops I got there, as well as the WA Bent form, the SS4 form, as well as some more videos which I will be putting up. All right. So like I said, those particular workshops are very in depth. So if you're interested in becoming a private member, okay, of Sunel University, and having access to these in-depth workshops, as well as all the literature, you know what I'm saying, that comes along, with Suno University. I have some books that I prepared and put together, and some books which I have authored, and also a slew of PowerPoint. So by becoming a personal member of Suno University, you'll have access to all these things, as well as the Suno University Google Drive library. You know what I'm saying, as well as some other in-depth and personal videos which I have available. All right, and the donation amount to be a member is 20 notes per month. All right, so if you wish to become a private member of Sunel University, please email me at suneluniversity@gmail.com. Like I said, you can find that email in the description box. Communicate with me, and then we can go from there. All right, in terms of how to establish um, your membership and how to make sure you'll have access to all of the study materials, and also the new study materials that I'll be producing, as well as the PowerPoints. You know what I'm saying, as well as the in-depth workshops. You have access to all of those things. All right, as well as you'll continue to have access to the videos which I put out on this particular public page. All right, so once again, just email me at sununiversity@gmail.com, and then we can go from there. All right, with that being said, let's get into it, family. Let's get into it. I'm gonna have to go back. All right, let's do this again. So this PowerPoint is titled Private Business and Banking. Private Business and Banking. The Individual and Collective Universal Estate Planning Guide for Indigenous Peoples. All right? Self-explanatory. Now, I've gone over this quite a few times, and I like to be repetitive because the law is redundant because it doesn't change over time. So you have to be redundant in these comprehensions of exactly what's being said when you're identifying as certain things. All right, so let's just go through the list because this has a lot to do with how you'll conduct yourself as a in your proper person via on the commercial side with your private banking. All right. First classification, and you can find this classification on the SF-181 form as well as the SS-5 form from the Social Security Administration. All right, this is what the classifications mean. All right, American Indian or Alaska Native, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. 2. Asian, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands, Thailand, and Vietnam. Number 3, Black or African American.
Want some cereal?
You want more cereal? I'm not going to give you more cereal. I'm going to cook you some food, okay?
Yes.
You want some water in the meantime?
Yes.
Here. That cereal's good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can't keep eating that. Then there's not going to be no cereal tomorrow. All right? I'm going to make you something to eat, okay? Wow, that boy got appetite. That boy ate 3 bowls of cereal, huh? Okay. That boy had 3 bowls of cereal, man. He wanted a 4th one. He's all right. I know he can hold out for a little bit. So, let's continue. 3, Black or African American. A person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. Okay? No people. That's why I got it underlined here. Because who else identifies as Black or African American? Okay? That's a no-brainer. We all know who this is referencing. Okay? When you identify as this, you're identifying as a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. Meaning where are the people? There's no origins in people. Look at the form yourself. This is straight off the form. Copy and paste it. There is no origins in any people. So trust me, this has a big, big impact on your personal life, your commercial life, your estate, and your legal standing, as well as how you function internationally, right? And how international law applies to you. Because international law, Declaration of Human Rights, Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, right, as well as the Declaration of Human Rights, applies to people. If you don't have no origins in people, none of those things apply to you. Treaties don't apply to you either if you identify as Black African American because they don't have origins in any people. So Black and African American, I should say people who identify, right, who self-identify as Black or African American everywhere they go, anywhere they go, okay, don't have a mother. That's really what you're saying in a real simple form. You don't have a mother. So if you don't have a mother, that means you a test tube baby, right? That means it's like where you came from. That means you're not organic. You're not natural born. So if you're not natural born, that means you got to be a beast, a wild creature, a thing, right? An animal. So there ain't no laws or rights or respects for those type of things. You know what I'm saying? Because even in the animal kingdom, the animals have mothers, right? They were born from somewhere or from some entity, some animal. What I'm saying is when it comes to human rights, You're looked at as an animal. You're looked at as a creature of law because you don't have no origins in people. 4. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Person having origins in any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific Islands. You see how all these other classifications have origins in people? Let's not forget white. Number 5. White. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. Y'all know where Europe is. We all know the Middle East is the Middle East, Africa. And we all know where North Africa is. Right? So people from these regions, people from these regions are considered white. Okay? Once again, what happened to black? There's no people. There's no origins in people. All right? By default of the definition of black, those persons cannot be indigenous peoples. We as the people are coming into our own cellular memory and taking our place in the affairs of man. Okay? Man. Moorish American national. Take off that mental ball and chain that has taken the modern form of the term black or African American. Because that's what it is. It's a ball and chain. It's in your mind. It's not physical. Because when you self-identify as this, when you self-identify as a creature, as a thing, you have no rights in the eyes of the law. You definitely don't have no rights to own property. And you definitely don't have no rights to sue for damages. Okay? This is why Moors are not black. Okay? This is why we don't identify as such, because we understand the ramifications it has, the devastation it causes, not only in our personal lives, but in our commercial lives. What's the point of having all this knowledge if you're going to be broke? What's the point of having all this information to be broke? You're supposed to gather this information and put it into use, to put it into application, so you can actually have some real-time manifestations now, not keep talking about what we did back then, so we can create more now, right now. Because the youth is looking for what have you done now, not what have you done lately, not what have you done in the past. They're looking for what have you done now. And if all you can do now is just talk about history and the problems and not really have real-time solutions, then they're not fucking with you. Point blank, period. So we can't afford to lose the youth. Okay? So this is why we don't identify as black or African American. They don't have any origins in people. Okay? So that goes for my brothers who don't comprehend or appreciate the fact that nationality is what gives you standing in law, and without nationality, there is no commerce. Because if you don't have a nationality, you're chattel property. Property cannot own property. So that's a dangerous game that's being played. All right, be very careful. Be very, very careful. Because you're self-identifying as a creature or a thing, attempting to exercise the rights of people. Be careful, man. Be careful. This is people's lives at stake, yo. Families at stake. Be careful. Now, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Division for Social Policy and Development, Secretariat of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Okay? Workshop on Data Collection and Disaggregation for Indigenous Peoples. New York, the 19th to 21st January of 2004. All right, this is an actual conference that was held. So I actually copied and pasted directly from the journal from the conference. All right. So these are direct sources you can go look up for yourself. Now I took certain inserts, you know what I'm saying, to help affirm this particular PowerPoint. Now, after long consideration of the issues involved, the special rapporteur who prepared the above-mentioned study offered a working definition of indigenous communities, peoples, and nations. In doing so, Lai expressed a number of basic ideas to provide the intellectual framework for this effort, which included the right of indigenous peoples themselves to define what and who is indigenous. The working definition reads as follows. Indigenous communities, peoples, and nations are those which, having a historical continuity with pre-invasion and pre-colonial, right, meaning pre-Columbus, meaning prior or before 1492, societies that developed on their territories consider themselves distinct from other sections of the societies now prevailing on those territories. Kind of like how now we have now we have states today artificially over what used to be our indigenous territories prior to 1492. Okay. But remember though, having a historical continuity, which means it has to be continuing from before 1492, meaning what you were before 1492, you got to be that today. That got to be continuing. Societies that developed on their territories consider themselves distinct from other sectors of the societies now prevailing on those territories, or parts of them. Okay? And society is another fancy word for state. All right? They form at present non-dominant sectors of society and are determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their ancestral territories and their ethnic identity as the basis of their continued existence as peoples, in accordance with their own cultural patterns, social institutions, and legal system. So the reason why I have institutions underlined is because what's an institution? An institution is an organization. An institution is a state. Okay. Let me rephrase that. An institution is a arm of a state or an organ of a state or a nation. You see what I'm saying? And the legal system. Because your own internal laws are what is lawful. Your common law is the lawful law. Then it's translated into legal law. Because what? There's a legal system. Because in accordance with international law, we're dealing with persons, which is a state. A state is an entity. What gives the state life is the fact that there are people who voluntarily declare to be members of that organization and therefore are doing their works on behalf of that organization to grow it like a plant. So you're breathing life into it. There's people breathing life into these organizations, these institutions, these societies. All right. Now, this historical continuity may consist of the continuation for an extended period reaching into the present of one or more of the following factors of one or more. Occupation of ancestral lands, or at least a part of them. Aren't we under occupation, y'all? Okay. Common ancestry with the original occupants of these lands. Aren't we the heirs of the original peoples of this land? Known today as America? Right. Culture in general, or in specific manifestations, such as religion, Islamism, living under a tribal system, tribal system, meaning your own custom, tradition, culture, and laws, according to what? Your ancestors. Membership of an indigenous community. Are you a part of an indigenous organization? Are you a part of a group of people who are all indigenous peoples, who all have ancestry that comes from the soil here in America? Dress. I don't got my fez, I don't got my turban on my fez on today, but don't we all wear fezzes? Don't we all wear turbans? Don't we all agree that that's our ideal culture? That's the culture of our ancestors. So we want to continue that in 2018? Gregorian calendar? Means of livelihood. Lifestyle. Study, study, study. Everything organic. Language. Whether used as the only language, as mother tongue, as the habitual means of communication at home or in the family, or as the main preferred habitual, general, or normal language. This is why it's important that if you come from a cultural family and they still know their mother tongue, there's no reason why you shouldn't know your mother tongue. Because that's also you maintaining connection or affiliation to your community. Because I know Haitians are Maroons, which are indigenous. Okay? So you best damn well, I'm very happy that I know how to speak Creole. Very glad that I still have that, which I can pass down. Because that's part of my culture. All right? Residents on certain parts of the country or in certain regions of the world. Other relevant factors. On an individual basis, an indigenous person is one who belongs to these indigenous populations through self-identification as indigenous. Group consciousness. Meaning you're in a group. You recognize each other as indigenous. And then you all self-identify yourselves as indigenous. And is recognized and accepted by these populations as one of its members, meaning acceptance by the group, meaning you got to be voted in, right? This preserves for these communities the sovereign right and power to decide who belongs to them without external interference. That's beautiful, all right? That's clear cut. You can't confuse that. All right. So it's important that we as indigenous people self-identify. Do you have your nationality card? And when I say your nationality card, I mean, do you have your tribal card? The group or a community you are a part of, the organization or institution you are a part of, that is run and operated by true indigenous peoples. Are you accepted by the group? Do you all have identification that you all identify yourselves with as a group? Nationality is the order of the day, man. Y'all better stop playing. Y'all better stop playing. All right? You don't got nothing without nationality. Don't talk about commerce or UCC if you ain't got no nationality. Because we talk about international law here, yo. All right? This ain't the age of civil rights. That's done for. All right? Civil rights was deemed unconstitutional. If y'all didn't get the memo, civil rights was deemed as unconstitutional, officially in a court of law. Okay? Supreme Court. So we need to stop. Are you indigenous or what? And if you are indigenous, are you self-identifying yourself as indigenous? United Nations Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Now, I like this document because it lays out the mindset, what the mindset should be for indigenous peoples. And the only reason why I'm saying indigenous, because according to the definition of the United Nations, indigenous peoples are those who had existence here prior to Columbus, all right, prior to colonization. All right, so if you have ancestry that was here before Columbus came, then you are indigenous. And it's not hard to realize in this day and age that the indigenous peoples here were melanated. Okay? So if you ain't melanated, you ain't indigenous nowhere. And that's no offense, but that's just real rap. That's law and that's science. If you are not melanated, you are not indigenous anywhere. However, you still have human rights as people. Look at the Jews, for example. They don't own no land, but they are respected as a nation just the same. Article 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to the full enjoyment as a collective or as individuals. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, is my mom here?
No, she's at the doctor with them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Article 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to the full enjoyment as a collective or as individuals of all human rights and fundamental freedoms as recognized in the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and international human rights law. Article 2. Indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights, in particular that based on their indigenous origin or identity. Identity. You have a right that's recognized. Not that this document is giving you the right, it's reminding you of the fact that you have that right. You've always had that right. And other nations recognize the fact that you have that right. You're just not exercising it because you're choosing to be Black African American. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you how to get right and how to operate properly commercially in your private capacity, right? Under full commercial liability. Meaning, if you're gonna contract and do people wrong, then you have to face all the consequences. You can't hide from that. If you're not doing good business, then you are liable for all the consequences because you should know better, right? That's not love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So if you're not operating commercially according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, then you are held to the consequences of the law. No excuses. That's also part of being in your proper person. That means you know better, so you'll do better. And if you know better and don't do better, they're going to throw the book at you. Trust me. So, Article 3. Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. All right? So I'm showing you here how being yourself impacts your economic, social, and cultural development, which you have a right to develop, but you're not exercising that. You're not exercising your right because you've been misled by all these false leaders, you know what I'm saying? All these false Black leaders, all right, that we're Black or so-called African American. They don't have no origins and peoples, okay? Article 4. Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. All right? So everything you see that I'm doing here on behalf of SUNA University is different ways that I am helping, right, to finance the autonomous functions of Suna Shi Amaru Republic. You see the direction we're going in? Because we all have gifts. We all have a talent we were brought here from. So we're all supposed to come together as a group and utilize each other's gifts and talents and use that to bring in wealth for our organization, for our body, right? For our society as Moorish Americans. You can't do that though if you're Black African American. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can. But what I'm saying is you're going to be liable to being taxed by foreigners, meaning you're going to be taxed by people who came here after 1492 that weren't here before 1492 because you was here before 1492. But for some reason, you done fell and bumped your head. And I'm not judging because I was in the same position, right? I was out to lunch too. For 25 years of mine, I was out to lunch, okay? And I had foreigners who came here after 1492 taxing everything I did. Why? Because I was conducting my personal business, which I thought was my personal business, but was really private business, using that damn social security card on behalf of the family of the slaves on behalf of the family that still had me enslaved. So they had their hands in everything that I did. I didn't know that for the first 25 years of mine, being Black African American, not knowing the law, not understanding international law, not understanding commerce, international commerce, right? International public law and international private law. See, I didn't even, I hope y'all know that. It's not just public and private. There's public, private, international public, and an international private. All right? So it's important to be who you are and identify as who you are for your salvation. My goodness, for your salvation. And also, I want to bring into account too here. It says, we're here. I'm at Article 4, right? After autonomy or self-government, in matters relating to their internal and local affairs. Internal would be our private affairs. You know what those local affairs are? Those local affairs are when we're out and about within, not within, but we're out and about near the state, meaning the corporate state territory. Those are our local affairs because where we're domiciling at, right, we still have to interact with the people that are there, right? We still have to interact with the people. Those are still our brothers and sisters out there who don't know anything about their rights. So this helps us in our internal and our local affairs because we're not just supposed to be inside private in our own institutions and not getting out and trying to make a change politically in our communities. This is why we have a right to engage the local community and find different ways of financing our autonomous functions. Sunoshi Republic not getting no gifts from the state. We're not getting no handouts from the state. Everything is on us as indigenous peoples, nor are we looking for handouts because it should be all on us. You know why? Because in the beginning, it was all on us. All right. Article 5. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions while retaining their right to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. So, of course, I'm not saying that we should be involved in what the corporate state's doing. That's not what I'm saying at all. We need to be involved with what we're doing in terms of our institutions, our organizations. That's what we need to be involved with. We don't need to worry about, you know what I'm saying, elections or what have you. That has nothing to do with us. However, what we do need to be mindful of is the fact that when there are stupid legislations being passed that may affect us in our local affairs, in our local community, we have a right to speak up. That's our political power that we're not exercising. We have a right to speak up and and pretty much smack down, right? Any silly legislation that we don't want to pass that we know may affect our local affairs. They won't affect our internal affairs, but they'll have an impact on our local affairs. So we can't just be inside and not want to deal outside. There has to be a balance. We got to be both internal and external. We got to be indigenous and we got to deal with the societies that we're in. Okay? Not to stay there, not to get comfortable and complacent there, but to grow ourselves, rebuild our empire. That way we can go and get back what to the land. We can get back to the tropics. We can get back to the islands where we originally were, where it was hot, sun. I'm not saying stay here and keep playing this and keep coexisting. We don't have to do that. We can coexist amongst ourselves. But we got to learn how to run our own government first before we can go out and do that, right? Article 6. Every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Oh, you didn't know indigenous peoples have nationalities too? All right. 7. Indigenous individuals have the right to life, physical and mental integrity, liberty, and security of person. Don't forget now, a person is a... Don't even worry about that. We're just going to continue with the slide. The slide is going to be self-explanatory. Indigenous peoples have the collective right to live in freedom, peace, and security as distinct peoples, and shall not be subjected to any act of genocide or any other act of violence, including forcibly removing children of the group to any other group. So you know those acts of genocides when they've been pulling our people over and those people have been getting shot and killed and murdered? The reason why that has happened is, for one, you didn't properly, right, secure and protect your shit. Meaning you didn't properly register your car as an indigenous, register your car to an indigenous organization, to an indigenous institution that's being run by indigenous peoples, aka Moors. So therefore, the agents of the state, the corporate state, they don't know what's going on. They don't have no clue of you. They look up in their system, there's nothing on you, whether it says to fuck with you or not to fuck with you. So if they don't see nothing that says not to fuck with you, they're by default going to fuck with you. And when we are losing our people to these silly things of being stopped and being pulled over and killed and stuff like that, or even when they're not being stopped, when they're just out in the open, and cops aren't acting according to protocol. Well, because they're legal mercenaries. What I'm saying is, as an indigenous mindset, you'll put yourself in scenarios where you win, and still maintain your integrity, still maintain your national character. No one's giving up anything, right? We're simply exercising those rights that we have in the way which we deem fit. That's going to be most conducive to our success as a collective group. All right. Nationalities, though, today are also CPS, right? Taking children from families. Who's that happening to? That's happening a lot to Black and African Americans, isn't it? The same ones who don't have any origins in people. So are they really taking your children? Because only people have children. Only people have sons and daughters. Mothers and fathers have sons and daughters. You don't have no origins in people. So did you really produce a son or a daughter? You sure? Or was that property for the state? And they just came and repossessed their property. So this is how you stop genocide. That's one of the spells that comes along with Black or African American. Genocide. Socially, politically, spiritually, economically. All right? Those are the 4 deadly curses, all right, that come with being Black. And it doesn't just come here. That happens to everyone universally. All right. Wherever you go, you identify as black. Just know you are identifying as someone who doesn't have origins in people. And the rest of the world, when you identify as that, they know that you're still a slave. They know that. They know that. They just not gonna tell you. They know that. All right. Article 17. Indigenous individuals and peoples have the right to enjoy fully all rights established under applicable international and domestic labor law. So this deals with now if you're indigenous, right, and you're working a 9 to 5. Nothing wrong with that. You have a right to get finance how you need to get finance to secure wealth for your children and your family to make sure you're living well. You deserve to live well. So if you're on a 9 to 5 because you're setting yourself up to live well, then there is a way for you to do that without foreign interference, without foreign taxation on your wages, not your income, your wages. Income is like if you made an investment. If I made an investment of $25 and I get back $200, that's income. I had an income of $175. You understand? But if I have to wake up and physically work and I'm providing a service, nah, that's my wages. Because I'm not making an investment and getting a profit. I have to physically give my energy, my labor for that. That's not income, that's wages. All right? And wages are not taxable. But you know what's taxable? Income is. So once again, when you know you're indigenous, you know you're private. You know you can't be taxed by foreigners. So therefore, if you're working a 9 to 5, you have a right to have your net pay match the gross pay. Okay? Now, after that point, you have a right to decide, I want to keep the health care, right? I want to keep the health insurance. That's your right. You have a right to contract as you please. Okay? So if you choose to have funds put into that to make sure you have medical care taken care of, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But guess what? It was your choice. See, you're not given a choice of how much they get to tax, right, out of your so-called income. You're not given a choice. That's the difference. And when you go file those tax returns, they're not giving you a quarter of what they took from you that year. And you know it too. You know it. Every time you get those tax returns back, you know that if you did the math on how much tax they took every time you got paid, or maybe I shouldn't say paid, every time you got your wages and you added it up for the year, you should have got way more. All right? But if you know who you are and you're indigenous and you're operating how you need to operate, you don't have to worry about filing later in the year. Why? Because you're already getting everything now. Right now, not later. Then guess what? Then you have the right to choose, what do I want to do with these extra funds? Maybe we can invest in something now to make a profit. Right? But it's about giving you the power of your choice. Our power of choice has been taken from us. We have to reclaim that back. So it's not about contracts. It's about how you contract and how you deem fit of how you need to contract for the to best secure and protect your family as well as yourself. That's your right. So you need to think on how's the best way to move to get yourself and your family in the best position possible to win. Okay? This is chess, not checkers. Where we at now? 20. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions, to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of subsistence and development, and to engage freely in all their traditional and other economic activities. So we have the right to freely engage, however we choose, however we please. Still being indigenous peoples. It's not saying that, oh, if you do this, you're no longer indigenous. No. As indigenous peoples, you have a right to do that. Article 23. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies, because this is chess, not checkers. I'm going to start from the beginning again. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for exercising their right to development. Because it's one thing to say it, right? It's one thing to read a document and it says you can do these things, but how are you going to do it? What does it look like getting it done, right? In particular, indigenous peoples have the right to be actively involved in developing and determining health, housing, and other economic and social programs affecting them, as far as possible to administer such programs through their own institutions. Then I talk about administer programs through state institutions. I talk about administer programs through your own institutions. For instance, Suno University is a program, right, under the educational department of Sunoshi Amaru Public. That's what exercising our right looks like as indigenous peoples. And then I have a few pictures here of what indigenous peoples are. All right. You see this charming guy over here? You know what I'm saying? I'm rocking my ancestral headdress. Y'all know who this is, Cam Newton. A light bulb switched off in his head. Now he's rocking his ancestral headdress with the love, right? We have the Prophet Drew Ali. He's rocking his noble headdress, right? We have a statue here of an ancient Kemetan high priestess or priest. He's rocking his red fez. We got a picture here of the Olmecs. They got their fezes with their tassel. You see pictures here of statues from Easter Island. You see their fezes. Why are they crimson? All right. And if you look here, this is from a statue in Corral Supe, Peru. This dates back to 2600 BCE. Look at this ancestor. Look at that big nose. Look at them lips. Look at them locks. Look at them little snakes. Them little serpents. What's that on there? Oh, what? Oh, wow. Is that the brimless hat? No. Is that the bucket hat? No. You know, it looks like a fez, y'all. Continuity. From before Columbus to present. Before Columbus to present. Before Columbus to present. Indigenous. Okay? You still have ties to your culture. But in order to have ties to your culture, you got to know about your culture. Which means you're going to have to do some studying about your culture. Which means you're going to have to study law and history. Just like Taj said, law and history. All day, every day. Now, I want to clear up the confusion that people have with nonprofits. 501c3 is one type of entity that falls under the category of a nonprofit. All nonprofits are tax exempt. However, if you choose to be a 501c3, what happens is there's certain things you can and cannot do. All right. And upon fulfilling those obligations, you'll get some kickback or some support from the state. Okay? So you need to see the difference. So look right here. Because a lot of people will talk about 501c3, but they won't talk about a 508c1a. Okay? USC 26, subsection 508c1a. Right? 508. Special rules with respect to Section 501c3 organizations. All right. A. New organizations must notify Secretary that they are applying for recognition of Section 501c3 status. All right. You have to apply for a 501c3. All right. Except as provided in subsection C, an organization organized after October 9th, 1969 shall not be treated as an organization described in Section 501c3. 1. Unless it has given notice to the Secretary in such manner as the Secretary may by regulations prescribe that it is applying for recognition of such status, or for any period before the giving of such notice, if such notice is given after the time prescribed by the Secretary by regulations for giving notice under this subsection. B. Presumption that organizations are private foundations. Except as provided in subsection C, any organization, including an organization in existence on October 9th, 1969, which is described in Section 501c3 and which does not notify the Secretary at such time and in such manner as the Secretary may by regulations prescribe that it is not a private foundation, shall be presumed to be a private foundation. Meaning, if you don't apply as a 501c3, then it's presumed you're a private foundation. All right? Now, section C. Exceptions. There's exceptions? Yeah. Mandatory exceptions. Not just exceptions, mandatory. Subsections A and B shall not apply to A. Churches, their integrated auxiliaries, and conventions or associations of churches, or any organization which is not a private foundation, as described in Section 509A, and the gross receipt of which in each taxable year are normally not more than $5,000. It is so unfortunate that 100% of incorporated churches in the United States today are organized. It is so unfortunate that 100% of incorporated churches in the United States today are organized under USC 26 501c3 instead of USC 26 508c1a, which is an organic church. We all know church means circle. All right, so when we're talking about circle, we're talking about body, ecclesiastical body, dealing with a religious creed, a mission, right? The divine and national movement, the upliftment of fallen humanity. That is our mission, okay? That is a divine mission. No one put a gun to my head or my tribal members' heads to, you know what I'm saying, want to take on this task. Allah spoke to our hearts, and we took on the task with an open heart. All right? So operating as such, you don't need 501c3. But you also need to have the mentality that you need to put your talents and your ideas together to figure out strategies on how you're going to gain the financing and the funding, right, for our autonomous operations. Because we're not asking for handouts. A beggar nation cannot ask for handouts. I mean, a beggar nation cannot reach its highest peak, both economically, socially, or spiritually. All right? Section 508 is completely different than that of Section 501c3. The law of USC Title 26, 501c3 only relates to corporations and any community trust fund or foundation, not churches that are lawfully established through an affidavit. So, you know that Suna Shiyama Republic, we filed an affidavit at King County, right? Our articles of organization. That's how we established. Okay? That's how we established Sunel. So this is what I'm saying. We established it for ourselves, and then we said, You know, if we're really gonna be real about uplifting fallen humanity, then we're gonna have to get involved in the local affairs. And if we're gonna be involved in the local affairs, we need to operate in such a way where we're not being disturbed. We're not dealing with the same type of issues that everyone else deals with, being stopped, being taxed, all these things. We need to come up with a strategy on how to operate in line, okay, with the society that's occupying our land, so that we can formulate our own strategy and create our own infrastructure, so that when all this shit is long and gone, we're still here standing, because we done been set up way before. We didn't wait till everything went to shit and then we was like, oh God, we need to organize, we need to structure, we need to set up our own institutions. No, we do that now. Do that now. Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? Permission from who? Authorization from who? If it's in your mind, if it's in your heart, and you want to live that out externally through your actions, you authorize that. And when I say you, that means the God that dwelleth within your temple authorized that. Therefore, Allah authorized that. Allah and Allah. All right? Because it's mother and father. Bang. So, next slide. Don't worry, y'all. Don't worry, y'all. It's getting good. Unincorporation is the foundation. Trust law is the door. International law is the room behind the locked door. Let's open it together as indigenous peoples. Unincorporated associations are easy and free to establish and have very few of the same administrative or legal requirements of incorporated associations. Members must abide by the rules of the organization's constitution, if it has one. The Constitution might be formal like that of other organizations, or informal and not written down but agreed on by members. Unincorporated associations do not have a legal identity. They cannot hold assets in their name or the legal protections of members that come with incorporation. Okay? So upon knowing that, it's like, so it's cool. We can incorporate as people and form our bond, but then how do we secure our property? How do we secure our person? Legally, right? How do we secure it legally? Therefore, you need what? A person, an entity, which you can place your trust in. And when I say person, I do mean entity, for real. You need an entity that you can place your trust in to hold all your valuable property for you, for your benefit, to protect it. That's what trust law is, all right? So as an association of people, you need a person, a legal identity, a legal personality that you function through, right? Like the Zords and Power Rangers, like all the different Lions and Voltron. You see what I'm saying? So there are risks associated with forming an unincorporated association. For those who view it as risks, right? As the organization does not have a legal identity, individual members are personally responsible for the actions or debts of the organization or for any contract signed. Although unincorporated associations do not have the same economic significance as larger nonprofit organizations, their great number and presence in many communities across the country attest to the robust nature of this form of organization. All right? So it's putting ourselves in the best position, right? Because this is once we have the nationality in place, once we understand, nationality is the order of the day, right? Once you comprehend nationality is the order of the day, every day you wake, that's the order. All right, that's been in place. Boom. That's already in the foundation. That's already in the cerebral cortex. That's already in the pineal gland. It's in the DNA already. Nationality. Now, what's the next step? Commerce. Property. Ownership. You know what I'm saying? Economics. How do you secure economics for your own autonomous functions? Okay? So you need a person, a legal personality. In every state in this country, not just in this country, but in every country across the planet, is a person. You don't believe me? Look it up. They all have incorporation dates. Because all the territories across the globe are under occupation. So step one, right? This is the template here. Step one, form an association. Association, what is an association? Association is an organized group of people who share in a common interest, activity, or purpose. People. Okay. Step two, converse with Moors in your area. Create trust between each other. Not economic trust. I'm talking about a relational trust. Relationship trust. Create trust between each other. Build collectively on ideas for your clan, i.e., purpose of the organization. What's the goal? What's the mission? Right? Now's the time to think tank as Moors. All right? I know there's a lot of us who may feel like we're the only ones in our state territory. Trust me, that is not the fact. And even if it is the fact, right? In your mental, even if you do believe that that's the fact, that you're the only one in your particular territory, the mere fact that you're aware and you're awake and you see no one else on this wavelength, that means you're the one that's there to build that. You're the one that's there to build that organization. You're the one that's there to build that institution. You're the one that's there to start that association. You're the spark. Accept that. Don't run from it. Accept that. Accept that you're the spark. And when you move from your heart and you build it right, they will come. Because everyone wants to be a part of something. Don't you find it funny how we all come from families? It's not just like, yo, I'm Dolo. I'm just me by myself. No, I have a mother, I have a father, I have a sister, I have a brother, I have millions of cousins. I have millions of aunties from both sides. I have millions of second cousins, first cousins, third cousins. Like, everything is about association. All right? It ain't about individualism. Although there are times where we need to move in our individual for the betterment of the whole, because the whole is made up of our individual life and our journeys and what we do. All right? But it's not about the individual. It's about the goal. What is the goal as the whole collective, as the body? All right? Trust. A trust is a legal relationship. A legal relationship, right? But remember, first thing is to create a relational trust, relationship trust. Then after you establish that, you can create a legal relationship in which one person called the trustee holds property for the benefit of another person called the beneficiary. Did you guys know that institutions can be trustees? Oh. So once you have relational trust between people, then those people can come together and say, yo, since we all trust each other, let's put our brain together, form an organization or an institution. Let's all put our trust in it to hold all of our properties, all of our work, our labor, everything that we make off wages, everything that we produce and we get paid for in terms of services rendered in the name of the organization or the institution. Okay? That's where it's at. And who are the beneficiaries? The people. Who are the people? The ones breathing life into it. Who are the people? Who are the ones breathing life into it? The members. The indigenous members of that organization, of that indigenous community. Okay? So an indigenous community means that everyone in the community is indigenous. That's what an indigenous community means. Okay? Step 3, collectively formulate a nonprofit corporation to interface with other nations internationally. Because it's a funny thing, right? In the Constitution, no state can enter any treaty or any agreements whatsoever with any other states or countries internationally. But indigenous peoples can. Indigenous institutions can enter into international agreements and contracts. You see? So we have a right to utilize these things, but we don't have to associate ourselves. We don't have to assimilate. We can still be indigenous. Because as indigenous peoples, we have a right to international trade and commerce. Now, nonprofit corporation. A nonprofit corporation is a legal entity and is typically run to further an ideal or goal rather than in the interest of profit. Let me say that one more time. A nonprofit corporation is a legal entity or person, right? Because we need a legal personality in order to deal in international law. As a group, a nonprofit corporation is a legal entity and is typically run to further an ideal or goal rather than in the interest of profit. Many nonprofits serve the public interest, but some engage in private sector activities. If your nonprofit organization is or plans to raise funds from the public, it may also be required to register with the charities program of the Washington Secretary of State. So this is what I'm saying. If you're attempting to raise funds, right, then yes, that is deemed as you trying to receive a handout from the public, aka the state. So it's a difference if you're offering your talents in the form of services, right? And when you get the compensation for those services, right, you put that compensation back into your own organization or institution to help build it up. That's not the same thing. Okay? So be careful. Know what you're doing. Know how you're contracting. Charitable activities may require additional registration, as well as maybe a business license. All right? Now we're gonna go through some of the entities, the corporate entities. All right, how they look like. We're gonna not how they look like, but what they are and what are they for. We're gonna address them. Okay. Corporation. A corporation is a more complex business structure. A corporation has certain rights, privileges, and liabilities beyond those of an individual. Doing business as a corporation may yield tax or financial benefits, but these can be offset by other considerations, such as increased licensing fees or decreased personal control. Corporations may be formed for profit or nonprofit purposes. All right, filing with the Secretary of State is required. Okay, filing with the Secretary of State is required. So, what is it that the Secretary is recognizing? They're recognizing your filing. Who told you to file it? Who authorized you to file it? Oh, no one. We just came together and decided, yo, let's file this on the record. This is what we want to do. This is how we want to move. So, we're going to authorize that. Okay? So, what was recognized was the filing. All right? That's what the recognition is. Filing, your proclamation. All right? Limited liability company. A limited liability company, or LLC, is formed by one or more individuals or entities through a special written agreement. The agreement details the organization of the LLC, including provisions for management, assignability of interests, and distribution of profits and losses. LLCs are permitted to engage in any lawful for-profit business or activity other than banking or insurance. Filing with the Secretary of State is required. Massachusetts Trust. A Massachusetts trust is an incorporated business with the property being held and managed by the trustees for the shareholders. The trustees are considered employees since they work for the trust. Filing with the Washington Secretary of State is required. Municipality. A municipality is a public corporation established as a subdivision of a state for local government purposes. All public. Okay? Let's continue. Now, Went through a few of those entities so you can understand, and there's tons more entities. All right, but I gave you a few of those so you can kind of see the general outlook of how these certain things are constructed. But you also have to keep in mind that you are indigenous. Okay, you are indigenous. You have historical continuity that was before 1492 to the present day, to this date. What's what's today's date? What's today's date? I believe today's date is the 23rd. Yeah, January 23rd. All right, 1, 2, 3. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So, with that being said, okay, on the basis of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, okay, and wisdom is the application of the knowledge. All right. So with that, you need to comprehend that you're indigenous. So how you function with these particular entities are not the same as if U.S. 14th Amendment citizens were functioning with those because you're indigenous. Okay? You were here prior to the creation of these modern day corporate states. You're indigenous, though. Everyone who's living here, who wasn't here before 1492, they're aliens. They're not from here. They're not indigenous. Okay? The ease of opening a personal business account. And before I go into this, right, now we're getting into the nooks and crannies of how to operate and function. Prophet Drew Ali said, do business in your free national name. He said, do business moving forward in your free national name. All right? Having a nationality makes private businesses and private banking so unique because it's all on you. Full commercial liability. It's easiest to form with no requirement to register with a corporate state. It's easiest to run with no regulations about having a board of directors or meeting minutes or annual meetings, right? We're talking about the personal business banking. We're not talking about a collective now. We're talking about you and your individual daily life. You, your family, your children, what's happening in your cipher. All right? That's what this is about right now. How to help yourself within your cipher. Because if you're good in your cipher, I'm good in my cipher. The next Moore is good in their cipher. The next Moabitis is good in her cipher. Then as a collective, we're all in a good cipher. You see what I'm saying? But it starts with the individual first. You can't get to macro without starting with the micro. All right? It's all about economics, man. Now, so on a macro scale, you don't need to register your private, you know what I'm saying, your private person with the state because it's private. But what's important is that you have an organization or an institution that can provide you the protection of establishing, right, a tax identification number for you, protected underneath that institution, which you'll have access to as being a part or a member of the institution or organization, being indigenous. You see what I'm saying? So being part of a group or collective just doesn't mean, oh, I'm part of a group or collective. It comes with benefits. If those people who are associating, right, are really putting a good strategy together on how to best operate individually and as a collective, wherever we're at, in whatever state republic we're at. All right. So once again, once you, as a member of an indigenous organization or community or institution, right, that institution is supposed to be able to issue you a private EIN number or tax identification number so you can do commerce. Leave that social security number alone. We're not US citizens. Put it down, put it away. Operate through your trust. Okay? So, went through this. The national /owner, right, is in complete control of his or her personal business, not having to answer to anyone except self. The national/owner gets all of the wages/compensation for services rendered in the name of your person that has an EIN/TIN number. Okay? And EIN, another name for EIN is a tax identification number. All right, just to be exact. But of course, the national must also take all of the losses. Being free is being responsible. So, yes, when you're operating in your private capacity, you're operating under full commercial liability, meaning you're responsible for anything that happens on the commercial side because it's on you. It's on you. It's on you, God. So you got to take control and stop wanting to be led. Take the control. All right. Now, Social Security number or tax ID number, aka U.S. 14th Amendment citizen, right? That's the mark of the beast or the business number that's assigned to U.S. citizens, right? 14th Amendment citizens, right? They have Social Security numbers, which is not personal, which is not private, but it's actually a public number because it's Social Security, just like social media. Social meaning it's open to the public. I'm going to a social gathering. That means it's open. It's not private. So how could you think you're opening a personal business account, or how could you think you're opening a personal account using a public number? Right? Because your life is your business. So when the prophet says do business in your free national name, that means that you are supposed to have a person that is in your likeness and your image, having your free national name, so you can conduct business. And that person has a tax identification number, which, if done properly, should be tax exempt and not required to file anything. We're going to go further into that. All right. Now, we're going to continue. May open public account only with the Social Security number. So let me start from the beginning. The Social Security number or tax ID number, which is for the U.S. or 14th Amendment citizen, may open public accounts only with the Social Security number, even though they may call it a personal account. It's a public account because you're using a public number. That means it can be traced by the public. It can be tracked by the public. You sure you want the public involved in your personal business? Nah, I don't think so. Nationals can open personal accounts using their EIN, aka tax identification number. To get a tax ID number, instantly visit www.irs.gov. But remember now, if you go on this website and you assign or you get yourself an EIN online, and it's not created underneath a foreign entity, meaning a foreign entity is not the responsible party, then you have just created a domestic entity, which is subject to the laws of the United States. Once again, social, public, not personal. So being indigenous, we got to be competent so we'll know how to move as indigenous. All right? But these are the strategies in place. Employment identification number. An employer identification number, EIN, is also known as a federal tax identification number and is used to identify a business entity. Generally, businesses need an EIN. You may apply for an EIN in various ways, and now you may apply online. This is a free service offered by the Internal Revenue Service, and you can get your EIN immediately. You must check with your state to make sure you need a state number or charter, which is not the case. You don't need a state number or charter unless your state is an indigenous organization or institution and you're a member, and due to the fact you're a member, you have a right to certain protections to help you move commercially. So that number would probably be assigned to you from your state. Now, U.S. Code Title 28, Judiciary and Judicial Procedure. All right.
What's up, man?
What's good, King? How you doing?
Man, chilling, man. Chilling like a villain.
Right.
Cheese and rice, man.
Yeah, I'm making this video right now.
Oh,
No, you can chill. You good. I'm just letting you know. All right.
but Islam Noble Moors, man. It's Ikramullah Bay, man.
Man.
I'm Moorish American as well.
Already.
You know what I'm talking about?
Moorish.
It's raining outside. Here my fans right here, y'all.
Moorish.
Already.
Moorish. All right. Employment Identification Number. An Employer Identification Number, EIN, is also known as a Federal Tax Identification Number. All right, I read this already, right? We went through this here. So we're going to go into U.S. Code Title 28, Judiciary and Judicial Procedure. For purposes of this chapter, a foreign state, except as used in Section 1608 of this title, includes a political subdivision of a foreign state or an agency or instrumentality of a foreign state as defined in subsection B. Now we're going to subsection B. An agency or instrumentality of a foreign state means any entity, which is a separate legal person, corporate or otherwise, and 2, which is an organ of a foreign state or political subdivision thereof, or a majority of whose shares or other ownership interests is owned by a foreign state or political subdivision thereof, and which is neither a citizen of a state of the United States as defined in section 1332 C and E of this title, nor created under the laws of any third country. Now, if you didn't know what a third world country is, a third world country is a country where it was colonized, and after it reclaimed its freedom, rather than going back to its ancestral traditions and customs, it decided not to do that. So the other option you would think would be to pick up and continue from what the colonizers were doing. They didn't do that either. So in that sense, it became a third world country. All right. So that's essentially what happened to Haiti. Because when we reclaimed our independence, we didn't go back to our sugarcane industry. That was our industry. That industry was popping long before Columbus came in 1492 when he landed in Santo Domingo. All right, long before. But after that happened, we didn't want to deal with anything that reminded us of the colonizers. So we didn't go back to our ancient tradition and customs, nor did we mess around with any of the colonizers' customs. So we're left with a third option, which is third world country. That's what a third world country is. All right. Meaning the ancient nations don't want to deal with you because you're not living by your traditional customs, and the corporate world don't want to deal with you because you done tore down one of their institutions, meaning, reclaim your freedom. But they look at it as you did them wrong. Go figure. All right. So when we talk about assigning a tax identification number underneath your state or your institution, and that state or institution being foreign, okay, then that's what determines what a foreign state is. So a foreign state is an entity, okay, meaning it's a legal person, because in international law, it requires you to have a legal personality, all right, a legal person that the indigenous peoples put their trust in to deal in international law. All right. Now, C, the United States includes all territory and waters, continental or insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Indigenous peoples are not subject to any jurisdiction of the United States. Okay? We're not subject. We're free. Okay? We're free and equal amongst all other people. All right? So down here, and I put this note here so I won't forget. Non-interest bearing account. All right? You want to open a non-interest bearing account, okay? Why? Because never forget, usury is a supreme violation of Islam. So remember, as nationals, always operate with non-interest bearing accounts. All right, because usury is when you loan. Let's say my brother asked me to loan him $20, and I say sure, I'll loan you $20, but you'll have to bring me back 25. But you have to bring me back to 20 with $5 interest. That's usury. Okay. So, getting into the idea of money marketing accounts, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not knocking anyone's ideas for economic gain, but what I'm saying is we can do this without damaging our integrity as indigenous peoples. Okay? As Moorish Americans, we abide by Islam, so we don't believe in usury, right? We operate fairly in equity. If I loan you $20, just bring me back $20. All right? So that's the thing behind non-interest bearing accounts. Also, non-interest bearing accounts are private. And because they're non-interest bearing, they can't be used like the other accounts are used, because you know that when you deposit $10 into a bank, a so-called bank, 9 of those 10 notes are being passed out for loans. All right, they're being fractionalized out for loans. So out of every $10, 9 is being passed out for a loan. And on that loan, people are paying what on loans? Mortgages, which includes what? Interest. They may be paying a car note, which is another mortgage, which includes what? Interest. That's usury. So there are different ways that we can solve issues from an individual standpoint, from a private standpoint, to help the macro. You know what I'm saying? In a larger scale. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
Oh, that's all good.
grab my headphones.
No, you good, you good. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? So usury is a big no-no. All right? Usury is a big, big, big no-no. Big no-no. Especially if you're living according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Then why we don't want to misuse each other. Okay? So non-interest bearing account also cannot be traced. They're private. Okay? And they cannot be used to fractionalize and add on to people's loans. All right. So we're the ones causing all the trauma that's happening to us as people, whether it comes to nationality and commerce. All right. We're the cause of all this. So we need to get ourselves together and set up strategies, right, that works best for us, so we can operate and do this mission of uplifting fallen humanity. Now, USC Title 28, Section 1332, diversity of citizenship, right? Amount and controversy caused. For the purposes of this section and Section 1441 of this title, a corporation shall be deemed to be a citizen of every state and foreign state by which it has been incorporated, and of the state or foreign state where it has its principal place of business, except that in any direct action against the insurer of a policy or contract of liability insurance, whether incorporated or unincorporated, to which action the insured is not joined as a party/defendant, such insurer shall be deemed a citizen of every state and foreign state of which the insured is a citizen. Every state and foreign state by which the insurer has been incorporated, and the state or foreign state where the insurer has its principal place of business, and the legal representatives of the estate of a decedent shall be deemed to be a citizen only of the same state as the decedent, and the legal representative of an infant or incompetent shall be deemed to be a citizen only of the same state as the infant or incompetent. Meaning that incompetent people are stuck. Okay? They're stuck in that 14th Amendment jurisdiction. All right? So, yes, it's letting you know that corporations are citizens. They are citizens. They have all the same rights and privileges, right, as natural beings. Natural beings, not Black African American people. So it's not that corporations are bad. it's the agenda that a corporation is created underneath. Who's running that corporation? Who's running it? What's the agenda? That's what makes an entity bad, right? The people, not the entity itself. The entity is lifeless. You can't blame a puppet. All right. So based on the principal place of business, as well as the state. All right. So this is where we learn now that corporations have dual citizenship. Go figure, right? So persons have dual citizenship. Corporations have dual citizenship. Okay. So a corporation can be a citizen of the place of its principal place of business, which should be a foreign, right, principal place of business. And then once it files with the Secretary of State, right, that corporation, then that corporation is also a citizen of the state. Okay? But remember now, last video I did, the Secretary of State is contracted underneath what? The Constitution for that state. And in the Constitution, all treaties entered into and adopted all treaties entered into prior to the adoption of this Constitution shall be valid against the United States as previously. Paraphrasing. So essentially, your person has a dual citizenship where it's foreign to the United States Corporation Company, but it's not foreign to the land. Okay? So if it's not foreign to the land, then the people can function, right, being foreign from a corporate place and from an indigenous place, but also have those same rights and immunities granted to other free citizens of that state. And mind you, I said free citizens specifically, because only free citizens have the right to enterprise. And citizen just means member. So when I say member, it means citizen. They're one and the same. Member, citizen, national. Okay. So went through that. On to the next one. Now, this is an entity, all right, that was created for me, which I got assigned from my state, from Swinomishi Republic. Okay. So here we go. This is I pretty much copied and pasted the front page so you can get an idea. All right. This is the layout of how all IRS confirmation letters look like. So it'll say Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, Cincinnati, Ohio, right? Which is where all foreign entities come out from. They come out from Cincinnati or Philadelphia. All right. Date of this notice, they'll tell you the date, employer identification number, 82-1234567. All right. Now, remember now, an EIN number, a TIN number, a social security number, they're all 9-digit numbers. They're all 9-digit numbers. So just because a box is written 123-12-123, it's still 9 boxes. Meaning there's a place for 9 numbers. Okay? This EIN is one. Let's read it. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9 numbers. You get what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Okay? There's a box for 9 numbers. Now, the prophet said, do business in your free national name. What's the name of the entity? Kuel. Okay? In care of who? Ku Ama El. Give me 1 second, family.
Hi.
Hey, Sheree.
Am I too early?
No, you're fine. I actually forgot you were coming.
Oh.
Just have a seat. I'm wrapping up a video. All right?
Okay,
So you
no
sit
worries.
down. Say hi. You can wave hi to the camera and such. Already. All right. I'm actually going over what we're going to be working on a little bit later.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So, right, the name of the entity is Cool L. Is in care of Cool Ahmad L. Right? Okay. This is in all caps. This is in all caps. Right? This is my first title, my last title. All right. Then it has the address. For assistance, you can call IRS, whatever. Now, this is what's said in the first paragraph. We assign you an employer identification number. Thank you for applying for an employer identification number. We assign you EIN, blah, blah, blah. It'll be the same number here. But look at what's said. This EIN will identify you, comma, your business accounts, comma, tax returns, comma, and documents, even if you have no employees. Please keep this notice in your permanent records. So this EIN will identify you, then your business accounts, then tax returns if you have to file, etc., etc. So you see what the prophet meant when he said do business in your free national name? We all need a person. We all have a right to be secured in our person. All right? You have to have a person in international law. All right. Now, this right here at the top, this is for everyone who has an EIN to verify that it's on a zero master file. Okay? And we're going to learn in a second what the zero means. All right? So, IRS use only. If I see, this is the number right here. The first two letters of the entity, 0999. All right? What's that about? So, this is from the IRS manual. You can take these, type these in Google and they'll pop up. All right. CCE sign, input, nonprofit / exempt. The table below describes the fields and the entries for nonprofit or exempt organizations. See IRM 21.7, blah, blah, for general input instructions. 2, master field indicator. The master field indicator, MFI, is B, when there are filing requirements, or 0, when there are no filing requirements. You see the 0? You see the 9s? No filing requirements. That's how you know. Okay? Now, definitions of trust. A trust is a legal entity that is created under the state law and is taxed under federal law, in which one party holds assets for the benefit of another and can be created to do one act or a series of acts. Family estate. I'm just going through different types of entities. All right. Family estate. A trust instrument provides evidence of ownership, such as certificates of beneficial interest in the trust. The grantor is a trustee and executive officer, and the corpus and undistributed income are distributed to the owners after the trust is terminated. Note, this is also known as a family, comma, family estate, comma, pure, comma, equity, pure, comma, prime, comma, or constitutional trust. So as you can see, the Constitution is all about family. Now, I think I'm going to stop here, family. It's been more than about an hour, so I don't want to overload. All right, so there will be a part 2 to this PowerPoint. All right, so we're going to stop here and pick off from this slide right here. Foreign entities, persons not required to file a U.S. tax return. All right, so thank you for your time and your energy. Once again, check me out. All the information you need is in the description box. Email me, and peace.